So in alphabetical order, the next state is Colorado. So we talked about California, and talking about California as it was as boring as you would expect. It's kind of like talking about Arkansas and Alabama. But Colorado is a strange state. Colorado used to be a ruby red state. There were some times where, of course, the Democrat was really popular on a national scale and they won the state. But Colorado used to be a safe red state. But states' identities can change. For example, there are many states that used to be red states and used to be blue states, but they flipped in the period of history. For example, a lot of the South used to be blue, and of course, California used to be red. And the Northeast used to be red as well, but they changed. Colorado is basically now the hippie state. That's basically Colorado. And basically, this is the county map. Even like rural counties, the Republicans cannot win. Like these areas they're winning, like the more mountainous areas are like two people with Republicans are winning. But parts of the states what matters, like the Denver suburbs, and there are these blue counties, which is where more people live. Yeah, there are a couple of things that might make the state closer in 2024. For example, the Latino trends, and that's it. That's really all going for it. And there might be some reversion and maybe these blue areas because of a core, because they might not be able to replicate what happened in 2020 again. Moving the state back to a likely margin. But I think Colorado is going to become the next Minnesota. As Minnesota becomes less and less and less reliably blue in the future, Colorado might fill that void of the state that never votes Republican, ever, even in close elections. With California, of course. Colorado has basically adopted California's identity. Even if a small shift in the state, an average happens in 2024, this was the map would still look like. A lot of these areas was again, these are like some very rural areas that are not voting Republican. Which for a state, you expect a state that is a lot of rural to vote Republican. For example, places like Summit are not really that big counties. They're like the size, the same part. They're not really populated places, but they tend to vote Republican, not Republican, Democrat, as well, which is something that the Republicans are now struggling with. Let's compare this to a state like Wisconsin. No, you're not Wisconsin. I actually clicked on Minnesota. State like Wisconsin, okay? You have some rural areas that are like tilt blue, but the rural areas in Wisconsin are going to continue trending towards, and the smaller metros are going to continue trending towards Republicans. But Colorado is one of the few states where a lot of the roads, for example, just like these states up here, not really Maine, but a lot of these states up here, especially look at, and Colorado is like the outlier of the Rocky Mountain states besides Nevada. Whereas Nevada basically has like one big area and that's it, and that's Las Vegas. And Democrats are losing that area just like Miami is. Yes, and I would expect more and more cities that are kind of more close, or some of those types of cities. For example, some cities in Texas that actually flip back in the future. Democrats in the future might not have a complete majority in cities anymore, which we're seeing in Florida and starting that in Nevada, with Nevada's only big city, of course, being Las Vegas. But we look at all of the big mountain states. For example, Montana, 16 points here. If you look at the mountain states, a lot of these states voted like massive margins for Republicans. Utah, as well. Rocky Mountain State, the only Rocky Mountain State to not vote Republican is besides Colorado is New Mexico, and even that state is going to probably start trending towards Republican. Even then, the state, is just probably start trending towards Republicans given Latino trends in the country, which we have seen in New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Texas in various urban areas. But the thing with Colorado is that the fact that a lot of these rural areas are very liberal and have turned very liberal. Let's see, for example, none of these areas voted ruby red like the rest of the rural areas. Let's say these areas did not vote just like Montana and states like that. Colorado would be an R plus 10 state. It would be an R plus 10 state. We also ignored San Miguel, which. Because these places are rural. These places should be voting red. Okay, Republicans can easily flip a state like Colorado, though. Okay, this is a suburb. These are like the suburbs, but a lot of these rural areas should be Republican, and a lot of rural America does not support Democrats. But why is Colorado doing the opposite? Well, a lot of the same people who came from California, which unlike, which compared to Arizona and Nevada, which we'll talk about later, a lot of Californians are also moving to Oregon as well. But a lot of conservatives are moving to Nevada, and a mix of both are moving to Arizona. But a lot of liberals are moving to Colorado, and those moving to New Mexico because nobody wants to live in New Mexico. And some of the liberals are moving to Utah, which is flipping some of these counties blue, like Salt Lake and Summit. But Utah is never gonna vote blue as long as Mormons stay a majority in the state population. And if these counties flipped in Utah, it would be it would be a safe state. But Colorado is a strange state. You also have Mormons expanding into Colorado, which that is a longer trend that is going to continue happening. I think for the near future, Colorado is going to become like Minnesota. Maybe in like 1-1-1 super close race, Colorado might vote Republican, but it's very unlikely Colorado will vote Republican, given that a lot of liberals are just moving to Colorado, and it's still a really fast growing state from liberals, and a lot of these liberals are moving into the rural areas, which which again, a lot of these rural areas used to be Republican, but now are Democrat because a lot of people moved into them. The next state we're going to be analyzing is Connecticut. Good old Connecticut. And yeah, I explained Colorado and I think in like the far future, Colorado could be voting Republican again, simply because in Colorado, you have Mormons, the Mormon faithful continue to expand to the state, which Mormons vote Republican. For example, in Arizona, there's like 5% Mormon there's like 5 to 10% of the population is Mormon. Colorado's like 2 to 3%. And I think in the future, like try 2100, it might be like 30% or 20%. And it's already some substantial portion of Idaho, which might keep that state red. Same thing of Wyoming, and of course Nevada as well. So that's basically about this video. Goodbye.